my goodness!
A powerful billionaire CEO slams the brakes when he finds twin babies abandoned in a basket in the middle of a busy Lagos road. But when he takes them in, he uncovers a shocking secret. These babies are connected to the dark truth behind his wife's death and the corruption threatening his empire. Imagine driving down the busy streets of Lagos on a bright afternoon and suddenly your luxury car screeches to a halt. Right in the middle of the road, two crying twin babies, barely a year old, abandoned in a small basket. Who could leave them here, and why? But what this billionaire CEO didn't know is that saving these children would unlock a shocking secret that could shake his entire empire. The twist will blow your mind, so make sure you stick till the end. And before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more unbelievable stories just like this one. The sun blazed high over Lagos, Nigeria, casting shimmering heat waves across the busy Lekki Expressway. Cars honked impatiently, buses crammed with passengers swerved dangerously, and hawkers rushed between lanes, selling chilled sachets of water. It was just another chaotic afternoon until something happened that no one on that highway would ever forget. Inside a sleek black Range Rover, Mr. Adewale Johnson, the billionaire CEO of Johnson Holdings, sat in the back seat, reviewing important files on his tablet. He was a man known for his iron discipline and ruthless business strategies, but also respected for his philanthropy. At 45, Adewale had everything: wealth, power, and fame, but one thing his life lacked was a family of his own. His wife, Folashade, had passed away years ago, and they'd never had children. The driver pressed harder on the accelerator, weaving through traffic. Adewale had an urgent board meeting in Victoria Island, and delays were unacceptable. But fate had other plans. Suddenly, "Stop!" Adewale shouted as his eyes widened in disbelief. The driver slammed the brakes with a loud screech, the tires burning against the asphalt. Horns blared angrily from behind as cars swerved to avoid collision. Adewale leaned forward, staring at the middle of the road. There, right in the center of the busy expressway, sat a large woven basket. And inside that basket were two small children, twin babies, about a year old. Their tiny arms flailed as they cried uncontrollably, sweat dripping down their foreheads in the scorching heat. For a moment, the entire highway seemed to freeze. "Dear God," Adewale muttered under his breath. He flung open the car door and rushed toward the basket, ignoring the angry shouts of drivers and the blaring horns. Traffic ground to a halt as people pulled out their phones, recording the unbelievable scene. The richest man in Lagos, risking his life in the middle of the road to save two helpless babies. Adewale bent down, his heart pounding. The twins looked fragile, their clothes dusty, their tiny lips trembling with thirst. They clung to each other, their cries piercing through the chaotic noise of the highway. Adewale gently lifted the basket into his arms, shielding them from the sunday. The crowd that had gathered began to murmur. "Who could leave children here?" One woman gasped. "They would have been crushed." Another man shouted. "Wait, aren't those twins?" Someone whispered. Phones kept recording as Adewale carried the basket back to his SUV. His driver, stunned and speechless, quickly opened the door. Adewale set the babies on the seat carefully. That's when he noticed something odd. Tucked inside the basket, beneath the thin blanket, was a half-burnt piece of paper and a small silver locket. The paper was fragile, the edges blackened by fire. Adewale carefully unfolded it. Most of the writing had been destroyed, but a single chilling line remained. "If you want to know the truth about your wife, protect them." Adewale's eyes widened. His grip on the paper tightened. His late wife? His heart raced as a storm of questions flooded his mind. Who had left these children? Why in the middle of a highway? And what could they possibly have to do with his late wife? The driver nervously asked. "Sir, what should we do?" Adewale looked down at the twins, still crying softly but clinging to the locket as if it were their only comfort. In that instant, the ruthless CEO who commanded empires of wealth felt something he hadn't felt in years, a surge of fatherly instinct. "We take them with us," Adewale said firmly, his voice leaving no room for doubt. The Range Rover pulled away from the highway. Cameras still flashing, videos already spreading across social media. Within minutes, Lagos would know. A billionaire CEO had rescued twin babies abandoned on the road. But for Adewale Johnson, this wasn't just a random act of fate. The half-burnt note whispered a terrifying truth. These children were not strangers. They were a message. And whoever had left them there wanted him to find them. The news spread faster than wildfire. By the time Adewale's Range Rover reached his Ikoyi mansion, the video of him lifting the basket from the middle of the Lekki Expressway had already gone viral on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Clips titled "Billionaire CEO Rescues Babies" flooded feeds, some praising him as a hero, others speculating wildly about the mystery of the twins. Inside the mansion, a team of nurses from the private clinic Adewale supported were already waiting. The babies, weak from heat and hunger, were given milk and checked for injuries. They cried at first, but after being cleaned and fed, they settled into the soft white crib prepared for them in the guest room. Their tiny hands clutched each other, as though even in sleep they were afraid of being separated. Adewale stood by the window, his mind racing. The city skyline stretched in the distance, but he could not focus on the view. The half-burnt note lay on his desk, next to the locket. He had read the surviving words over and over again. "If you want to know the truth about your wife, protect them." He whispered the words to himself again, almost in disbelief. His late wife, Folashade, had died 3 years ago after a long illness. She had been his rock, his partner, his love. The idea that she had left behind a secret connected somehow to 2 abandoned babies felt impossible. And yet, the note was real, the locket was real, and the twins sleeping in his mansion were very real. "Sir," his head of security said, breaking his thoughts, "we've secured the mansion. But the press is already gathering outside the gate. They want a statement." Adewale shook his head. "Tell them nothing. Not yet. No one must know about this note." The man nodded and left. Adewale sat down heavily in his leather chair, his eyes fixed on the silver locket. He turned it over in his hand. On the back, faintly engraved, were 2 initials, A.J., the same initials as his own. His breath caught. Was it coincidence? Or was this locket meant for him? Suddenly, he heard a soft knock at the door. It was the nurse. "Sir, the babies are asleep now. They'll need a pediatrician for a full checkup tomorrow, but for tonight, they're safe." "Safe," Adewale repeated, staring at the locket. The word echoed strangely in his mind. Safe from what? Safe from whom? As the house grew quiet, Adewale found himself standing again by the crib, looking down at the twins. They looked peaceful, innocent, and yet, in their presence, he felt the stirrings of a storm he could not explain. Something deep inside told him their arrival was not an accident. Outside, in the shadows beyond the mansion walls, a woman watched. Her name was Ngozi. She had followed the Range Rover all the way from the highway, her worn slippers dusty from running. Tears streaked her face as she saw the twins now safe inside the billionaire's house. "Forgive me," she whispered into the night. "I had no choice." And then she slipped away into the darkness before anyone could notice her. The next morning, Lagos woke up buzzing with only one story. Newspapers splashed headlines about the billionaire who had stopped traffic to rescue 2 abandoned babies. Radio stations debated whether it was a stunt or divine destiny. Social media exploded with hashtags, "Billionaire Hero" and "Highway Twins." Inside the marble halls of Adewale's mansion, the atmosphere was quieter but tense. The twins were awake now, crawling clumsily across the carpet of the guest room, their tiny laughter echoing through the space. They looked healthier after food and rest, though their clothes still carried the faint smell of dust and smoke from the road. Adewale, dressed in his tailored navy suit, watched them from the doorway. He should have been in his office for a major deal that morning, but his mind refused to leave the children. Every time he looked at them, the half-burnt note flashed in his head. "If you want to know the truth about your wife, protect them." As a stated everyone, and see down. His chief of staff entered, carrying a tablet. Sir, CNN Africa wants a live interview. BBC has requested an official statement. Everyone is asking, who are these babies? Do you intend to keep them? Adewale's jaw tightened. No interviews? Not until I know what's going on. Tell them I'm focusing on the children's well-being. The man nodded, but the unease in his eyes was clear. With respect, sir, this is already bigger than you. The world is watching. Adewale dismissed him and returned to the desk where the silver locket still lay. He opened it carefully. Inside, instead of a picture, there was a scrap of fabric with a faded emblem, a crest he half recognized. But from where? His heart beat faster. Later that afternoon, he ordered his car and drove alone through the city, trying to clear his head. As he passed a market street near Surulere, something caught his eye. A woman in a faded wrapper was watching his car too intently, her eyes filled with something between fear and recognition. It was Nosy. She froze as the Range Rover slowed near her. For a second, it seemed she might approach, but instead she turned and slipped into the narrow alleys of the market. Adewale's instincts screamed. He parked abruptly and followed on foot, weaving past traders and children. "Wait!" he called out, his deep voice cutting through the market noise. Ngozi quickened her pace, clutching a torn bag against her chest. She ducked into a side street, but Adewale's long strides caught up with her. Finally, she stopped in front of a crumbling wall, cornered. Her shoulders trembled as she turned. Her eyes glistened with tears. "Please, don't give them back." Adewale froze. "You know about the babies?" Ngozi's lips quivered. "I was the one who put them there. In the road, in front of your car." For a long moment, all he could hear was the noise of the market in the distance, muffled by the weight of her confession. "Why?" Adewale's voice was low, dangerous. "You risked their lives." "No," Ngozi cried. "I saved them. If I hadn't, they would already be dead." Her words struck him like a bolt of lightning. This woman wasn't random. She was part of the storm that had suddenly taken over his life. And as he stared into her desperate eyes, Adewale knew one thing: this was only the beginning. Adewale's pulse thundered in his ears as he studied Ngozi. The crowd noises of the market seemed distant now, like the city itself was holding its breath. "Talk," he said firmly. "From the beginning. What do you know about those twins?" Ngozi clutched her torn bag tighter, her voice trembling. "They are not just orphans. They are connected to your family, to your wife." Adewale's eyes narrowed. "My wife? Folashade has been gone for 3 years. Do not speak her name carelessly." Ngozi shook her head, desperate. "I am not lying. Before she died, Folashade knew something dangerous. She trusted only a few people. I was one of them. And now, the men who killed her, they are hunting the twins too." The words sent a chill down Adewale's spine. He grabbed her arm, pulling her out of the open street into a quiet alley. "You're saying my wife was murdered?" Ngozi nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. "It wasn't illness, sir. It was poison. A slow one, mixed in her medicine. She discovered a secret about your company, about powerful men in Lagos. They silenced her. And now the twins, they hold proof." Adewale's grip loosened, his chest tightening as though the ground beneath him had shifted. He thought back to Folashade's sudden decline, how the doctors had never agreed on the exact cause. Could it be true? His voice dropped. "What proof?" "They're just babies." Ngozi reached into her bag with trembling hands. She pulled out a flash drive, wrapped in cloth. "She left this behind. It was hidden with the twins. That locket, it was hers too. She wanted you to find it all, but only if you chose to protect them." Adewale stared at the flash drive, the weight of it heavier than gold in his eyes. If what she said was true, this tiny object could unravel everything. Business empires, reputations, maybe even governments. Before he could ask more, the distant roar of motorcycles cut through the alley. Ngozi's face drained of color. "They've found me." 3 men on Okadas swerved into the street, their eyes cold, their movements sharp. They wore no uniforms, but Adewale instantly recognized their type: mercenaries, killers for hire. Without thinking, Adewale grabbed Ngozi's hand and pulled her behind him. "Run!" The two bolted through the market, vendors shouting in confusion as stalls toppled and baskets of tomatoes spilled. The motorcycles revved closer, engines snarling like predators. Adewale pushed past the crowd, his only thought the twins waiting at home and the truth he had just uncovered. By the time they ducked into another alley, Ngozi's breath was ragged, but her grip on the flash drive never loosened. "If they catch us," she gasped, "the babies won't survive. You must get them out of Lagos. Tonight." Adewale's jaw set like stone. He had faced boardroom wars and political games, but this was different. This was blood, truth, and betrayal. And he knew his fight had only just begun. The alley echoed with the roar of engines. The assassins on motorcycles were gaining ground, their tires splashing through puddles as they zigzagged closer. Adewale pulled Ngozi behind a stack of crates, his eyes scanning for an escape. He had faced hostile takeovers, corrupt politicians, and international rivals, but this was the first time someone had come at him with pure violence. He realized now that the note wasn't a warning, it was a countdown. "Stay low," he ordered Ngozi, his voice sharp but steady. One of the riders dismounted, pulling out a machete. His eyes gleamed as he stepped toward the crates. Just as he raised his weapon, Adewale launched forward with a burst of strength, slamming the man into the wall. The machete clattered to the ground. Adewale grabbed it instinctively, swinging it wide to force the others back. The killers hesitated. They had not expected the billionaire CEO, known more for boardrooms and luxury parties, to fight like a street warrior. "Go!" Adewale barked at Ngozi. She sprinted down the narrow lane, clutching the flash drive. Adewale backed away slowly, machete in hand, keeping the killers at bay. Then, with a sudden dash, he broke into the main road, waving down a Danfo bus. The driver cursed as Adewale shoved Ngozi inside and leapt in after her. The killers revved their bikes, weaving through traffic, chasing the bus. "Drive!" Adewale shouted. He tossed a wad of cash at the driver, whose eyes widened at the sight of the billionaire in his battered vehicle. Without another word, the Danfo roared forward, swerving between cars and Okadas. Inside, Ngozi clung to the seat, her voice trembling. "They won't stop. Not until the twins are gone. You don't understand who they're working for." "Then tell me," Adewale snapped, gripping the pole to steady himself. "Whose men are they?" Her lips trembled before she whispered a name Adewale knew too well. It was Chief Oba Martins, the board chairman of Adewale's own conglomerate, a man he had trusted like a mentor. The realization hit him like ice water. Chief Martins had been at Folashade's bedside before she died. He had insisted on handling medical arrangements. He had always pushed Adewale to stay focused on business, not on the whispers of conspiracy. And now Martins wanted the twins dead. The bus lurched violently as the killers closed in, one pulling out a pistol. Bullets shattered the rear glass, passengers screamed, ducking for cover. Adewale shielded Ngozi, his mind racing. They could not go back to the mansion. The twins were in danger there. The killers would already be moving toward them. "Where's the safest place in Lagos for two babies?" he demanded. Ngozi hesitated, then whispered, "Not Lagos, not Nigeria. If they stay here, they won't survive." Her words sank deep, heavier than the gunfire chasing them. Adewale knew she was right. For the first time in his life, he wasn't thinking about wealth, power, or image. He was thinking about survival of two innocent children who might hold the key to everything. And with the flash drive burning in Ngozi's hand like a torch of truth, he realized there was no turning back. This was war. The Danfo screeched around a corner, its tires nearly lifting off the ground as the driver fought to lose the pursuers. The riders fired another shot, sparks flying as a bullet grazed the bus's metal frame. Screams filled the cabin, but Adewale stayed calm, scanning every turn, every alley. His mind was already 10 steps ahead. When the bus finally slowed near a crowded interchange, Adewale pulled Ngozi out, tossing the driver another stack of cash. They melted into the swarm of commuters, slipping into the chaos. The killers on bikes overshot, circling in confusion. For now, they were safe. Breathing heavily, Adewale dragged Ngozi into an abandoned building. Dust filtered through broken windows, and the air reeked of old cement. He slammed the door shut, turning on her with fire in his eyes. "Talk now," he demanded. "If I'm risking my life and theirs, I need the full truth." Ngozi's hands trembled as she held out the flash drive. "This has files your wife uncovered before her death. Financial records, recordings, names, Chief Martins and his network. They've been using your company to launder money, smuggle arms, even arrange assassinations. Folashade found out. That's why they poisoned her." Adewale's jaw clenched. His empire, his life's work corrupted from within. And the twins? What do they have to do with this? Ngozi's eyes glistened. They are not ordinary orphans. Their mother worked for Martins. She stole the drive before she was killed. Folashade arranged for me to hide the babies with the evidence. She believed one day you would find them and choose the truth over power. Thinks the breasts for morning have happened sewed. Adewale staggered back, the pieces locking together. His wife hadn't abandoned him to illness. She had died fighting for something bigger. And these children, their survival was tied to her last act of love. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. It was a secure line, one only a handful of people had. His security chief's voice crackled through. "Sir," men stormed the mansion. "They're searching every room. We barely managed to smuggle the twins out. They're safe, for now, but we can't hold them here in Lagos. Not anymore." Adewale's chest tightened. He looked at Ngozi, then at the flash drive. The choice was clear. "We're leaving Nigeria tonight," he said. His tone was final, heavy with resolve. If Martins wants a war, he'll get one, but those children will live. And I will finish what my wife started. Ngozi nodded, relief mixing with fear. "I know someone who can help, a pilot, private airstrip near Badagry. But it won't be easy. Martins has eyes everywhere." Adewale pocketed the flash drive, his expression hardening. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking like a CEO, he was thinking like a man with nothing to lose and everything to protect. Outside, thunder rumbled across the Lagos skyline, even though the sky was still blue. A storm was coming, and Adewale was ready to meet it. Night fell heavy over Lagos, the streets buzzing with restless energy. Neon lights flickered across the third mainland bridge as Adewale's convoy cut through traffic, moving toward the outskirts. He wasn't in his armored Range Rover now, too obvious. Instead, he sat in a nondescript black Toyota Hilux with tinted windows, Ngozi at his side, the twins safely secured in the back seat with his most trusted security officer, Kunle. Every second counted. Chief Martins' men would be searching every road, every checkpoint. Adewale's name might command respect in the boardroom, but out here, his wealth meant nothing. It was survival now. Ngozi kept glancing nervously out the window. "The airstrip is outside Badagry. My contact will have a small plane waiting. Once you're in the air, Martins can't touch you." Adewale nodded, his jaw tight. "And where does this contact's loyalty lie? Money? Fear? He owes me his life," she said quietly. "But trust me, he knows the cost of betrayal." The car rolled into a quieter district, where streetlights flickered and the hum of the city gave way to the croaking of night insects. They reached a warehouse near the coast. Inside, an old Cessna plane sat waiting, its propellers gleaming faintly under the moonlight. A man in pilot's overalls stepped forward, wiping grease from his hands. "You must be the CEO," he said with a respectful nod. "Name's Chaik. We don't have long fuel is ready. Once we're airborne, destination is Accra. From there, you can disappear." Relief flickered through Adewale's chest, but just as he reached for the twins, a sharp click echoed in the warehouse. Kunle froze, his gun halfway drawn. Shadows shifted in the rafters above, and within seconds, half a dozen armed men stepped out, their weapons trained on Adewale and his group. Ngozi gasped, clutching the basket. No, he wouldn't." Chike raised his hands in mock apology. "I'm sorry, madam. Chief Martins made me a better offer. You're not leaving Nigeria tonight." Adewale's blood ran cold. Betrayal. Exactly what he feared. He shifted slightly, placing himself between the gunman and the twins. The men advanced, their leader pulling out a phone. "Sir," he said into the receiver, "we have them. The CEO, the woman, and the babies." There was a pause. A chilling, familiar voice responded, loud enough for Adewale to hear. "Well done, now finish it." It was Chief Martin's. The gunmen raised their rifles. Time seemed to freeze. Ngozi clutched the basket tighter, whispering prayers under her breath. Kunle's finger tightened on his trigger, ready to go down fighting. And then before the first shot rang out, the warehouse lights exploded into darkness. Gunfire erupted, but from outside. A dozen more men stormed the building, this time wearing black tactical gear. Their movements were precise, disciplined. The attackers scattered under the assault, caught between two fires. A familiar voice barked through the chaos. "Protect the twins." It was Adewale's head of security. He had come against orders, bringing reinforcements. The warehouse became a battlefield. Muzzle flashes lit up the night as Adewale grabbed the basket and pulled Ngozi toward the back exit. Kunle covered their retreat, firing shot after shot. The betrayal stung, but Adewale's mind was already moving. He realized something terrifying. Martins wasn't just trying to silence him. Martins wanted the twins alive because they were more dangerous than the flash drive itself. But why? The night air outside the warehouse was thick with gunpowder and smoke. Adewale sprinted into the open yard, the basket of twins in his arms, Ngozi clinging to his sleeve. Behind them, gunfire rattled like thunder. Kunle and the security team fought hard, buying precious seconds. They darted toward the coast, where boats swayed faintly in the darkness. The plan for the airstrip was ruined. Betrayal had shattered that hope, but there was still water, still a chance to vanish before Martins's men regrouped. As they ran, Adewale's mind raced. Why had Martins insisted on capturing the babies alive? Men like him eliminated threats, they didn't preserve them. That could only mean one thing. The twins weren't just proof. They were part of the story. At the shoreline, Adewale placed the basket carefully in a speedboat. The babies stirred, whimpering softly, as though they too sensed the chaos around them. Ngozi crouched close, whispering comfort. "Tell me now," Adewale demanded, his voice low but fierce. "No more half-truths. Why do these children matter so much to Martins?" Ngozi hesitated, her eyes darting between him and the twins. Finally, she drew a shaky breath. "Because they are his blood." Adewale froze. "What?" She swallowed hard. "Their mother was one of his secret mistresses. She discovered what he was doing with your company. When she threatened to expose him, he ordered her killed. But before she died, she gave birth to the twins. Martins wanted them silenced too, because if their existence is proven, his entire reputation and power will crumble. They are living evidence of his corruption." The revelation crashed into Adewale like a tidal wave. Chief Oba Martins, the man who had mentored him, shaped his empire, stood by his wife's hospital bed, had not only murdered Fola Shade but also fathered the very children he now hunted. And the note. Fola Shade's note. "If you want to know the truth about your wife, protect them." The truth wasn't just about betrayal in business. It was about Martins's betrayal of everything, family, loyalty, even Adewale's marriage. A sharp spotlight suddenly blazed across the water, cutting through the night. A patrol boat surged forward, bristling with armed men. Ngozi gasped. "They found us." Adewale gritted his teeth, gripping the basket tighter. For the first time, he wasn't just fighting for his wife's memory or even for justice. He was fighting to protect two innocent lives. Martins had tried to erase from existence two lives that symbolized both Martins's sins and Fola Shade's sacrifice. He stepped into the boat, eyes burning with resolve. "Then let him come. Tonight, Martins will learn he picked the wrong man to cross." The engine roared to life, the speedboat cutting through black waves as gunfire erupted again from the shoreline. The war was no longer about money or secrets. It was blood against blood. And Adewale was ready to spill his enemies. The speedboat tore across the dark waters, Lagos fading behind them like a city of ghosts. The twins cried softly in their basket, the sound barely audible over the roar of the engine. Adewale kept one hand steady on the basket, the other gripping the edge of the boat, his eyes locked on the patrol vessel gaining fast behind them. Kunle stood at the stern, firing short bursts at the pursuers. Sparks danced across the waves as bullets skimmed the surface. Ngozi clung to the rail, praying under her breath. The night smelled of salt and gasoline, heavy with tension. "Faster!" Adewale barked at the pilot steering their boat. But the man didn't respond. His shoulders were stiff, his head slightly tilted as though listening to something only he could hear. Adewale's instincts flared. He had seen that body language before, in boardrooms, in betrayals. "Kunle," Adewale said carefully, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Check the pilot." Kunle stepped forward, grabbing the man's shoulder. In an instant, the pilot spun, pulling a knife from beneath his vest. He slashed wildly, forcing Kunle back. Adewale lunged, punching the man hard across the jaw. The knife clattered into the water, but before Adewale could press the advantage, the pilot shouted, "Martin said no one escapes alive." The words chilled Ngozi, who screamed as the boat swerved violently. The basket nearly toppled. Adewale caught it just in time, his heart pounding as the twins wailed louder. Kunle wrestled the pilot to the deck, choking him until he went limp. Adewale pushed the body overboard without hesitation. "Martins has men everywhere," he muttered darkly. "Even here." But before they could breathe, the patrol boat behind them unleashed a mounted gun. Tracer bullets streaked across the night, ripping into the water around them. One shot grazed Kunle's arm, blood spraying. "They'll sink us before we reach open sea," Nosy cried. Adewale scanned the horizon. To their left, jagged rocks jutted out, forming a narrow passage only a skilled pilot would dare. If they made it through, the patrol boat would be too large to follow. But if they miscalculated, the speedboat would shatter on the rocks, and the twins would drown. He tightened his grip on the basket. "Hold on!" he growled, taking the wheel himself. The boat roared forward, waves crashing against stone as he threaded through the passage. Bullets pinged off rock, sparks flying into the night. Ngozi shielded the twins with her body, Kunle firing blindly behind them. The patrol boat tried to follow but ground against the rocks, its hull tearing. Shouts echoed across the water as it stalled, smoke billowing. Adewale's boat burst out the other side into open sea, battered but still afloat. For the first time in hours, silence returned. The babies, exhausted from crying, fell asleep against each other. Adewale slowed the boat, staring into the endless dark horizon. But he knew it wasn't over. Martins wouldn't stop. The man had power, soldiers, and corruption on his side. Adewale had only 2 babies, a grieving truth and a burning resolve. And yet, for the first time, he felt stronger than ever. Nosy touched his arm. "Where will we go now?" Adewale's eyes hardened. Not to hide, to fight. Martins thinks he controls the story. But tomorrow, the world will know the truth, and he will learn that his bloodline cannot protect him. The sea wind whipped across his face as he whispered to himself, almost like a vow. "For Folashade, for them, this ends with me." Dawn broke over Lagos with a fiery red sky, as though the city itself sensed the blood about to be spilled. Adewale stood tall in the grand lobby of his company's headquarters, the twins' basket hidden safely in a secured room upstairs with Ngozi and 2 loyal guards. The flash drive was clenched in his hand, burning like a weapon of truth. The time for running was over. Chief Oba Martins arrived in his usual display of power, flanked by bodyguards, dressed in a pristine agbada, gold rings gleaming. His smile was wide, but his eyes were sharp, calculating. The employees who had been forced to gather in the building whispered nervously, sensing a storm. "Adewale," Martins boomed, his voice echoing off the marble walls. "You've caused quite a spectacle. The whole world thinks you've turned into some saint, rescuing children from the highway. But we both know what's at stake here. Hand them over, and I will forgive your foolishness." Adewale's gaze was steady, unblinking. "You mean your children, your abandoned blood." The room fell silent. Martins's smile faltered for a fraction of a second before he composed himself. "Careful, boy. Lies can destroy empires." "Not lies," Adewale said, raising the flash drive. "Proof. Your financial crimes, the assassinations, the poisoning of my wife, and now the truth about the twins. Everything Folashade died to expose is here. I'll deliver it to the world. Today." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Martins's face darkened. His mask slipping? You don't understand. Those babies will ruin everything. Their existence alone undermines me. Do you think the world will believe a grieving CEO over me? Adewale's voice cut like steel. They don't need to believe me. They'll see the evidence. And when they look at those children, they'll see the man you really are. Martin signaled to his guards. Kill him. Bring me the twins. Before they could move, Kunle burst into the lobby with reinforcements, loyal security men, who had turned against Martins's mercenaries after discovering the truth. Gunfire erupted, chaos shattering the elegant silence of the building. Shards of glass rained down as bullets tore into the walls. Employees screamed and scattered. In the middle of the firefight, Adewale charged forward, tackling Martins to the ground. The older man was strong, fueled by desperation, but Adewale fought with something deeper, with rage, with grief, with love. Every punch was for Folashade, every strike for the twins. Finally, Adewale pinned him, bloodied fists hovering above his face. You tried to erase them, just like you erased her, but you failed. Martin spat blood, laughing bitterly. Even if you kill me, others will rise. Power cannot be destroyed. Adewale leaned closer, his voice a whisper like a blade. But the truth can. He raised the flash drive high for all the cameras because journalists had flooded the lobby, tipped off by Adewale himself before the confrontation began. Every word, every confession, every image was being broadcast live. Martins's face drained of color as he realized the trap. The world was watching. His empire was crumbling in real time. The shooting stopped. His own guards lowered their weapons, some even stepping back in disgust. Sirens wailed outside as police and federal agents swarmed the building. Ngozi appeared at the top of the stairs, the twins in her arms. Their small cries echoed in the chaos, innocent yet powerful. Cameras turned toward them, capturing the moment. Adewale stood tall, pointing at Martins as police dragged him away. These children will not be forgotten. Their lives will not be erased by men like you. This is not just about money or power. This is about justice. The crowd erupted, some in cheers, others in tears. For the first time since Folashade's death, Adewale felt a weight lift from his soul. He looked at the twins, their tiny faces framed in the morning light. He whispered silently to his late wife, "I kept them safe, just like you asked." And as the cameras captured the billionaire CEO cradling two innocent lives against his chest, the world knew the story was no longer Martins's to control. It was Adewale's, and it had only just begun.